If you've been looking for that Goldilocks paddle that's near the top of legal limit power, still has touch and control and a great sweet spot, this is the lineup for you. I have just been crazy impressed with what's going on with paddle technology lately. There's some paddles in this lineup where I just feel like I cannot blame my paddle ever anymore playing with some of these. So I want to jump right in with the EVA foam paddles. I do want to talk about the difference between EVA foam paddles and EPP foam paddles and the combination. There's now some that are combining the two. So I'm going to start with the EVA. I want to give props on the front end before I forget to Justin of Pickleball, etc., or he's part of the Pickleball Pursuit podcast with Lewis. Poor Justin, we have messaged, he has responded all week long talking to me about all of these foam paddles. And I know the ripples have been out for a while, but I haven't covered them. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you know I was a huge fan. I think it was one of the greatest innovations in paddle technology. Of course, this middle section has been reinforced so much that that weight means the edges are a little lighter. So usually you can put weight on the sides, or obviously to help with that twisting, but it starts out kind of heavy. So there are some differences in this, but I still think it's amazing. If you want the highest level of power or the most offensive paddle, when you John Q's, he calls it his Q core, that just totally correlates with PB core. All three of these paddles, the R1 elongated, the R4 hybrid, and the R2 standard, they are all at the top of the power list. So I'm going to share with you a little chart here. You'll see in red the things that are concerning. The other problem reinforcing the front of these, or the all that lattice, is that there's a little less dwell, and that was one of the things I loved about the production ripple. But still, it's EVA foam. It's soft, it dwells, it's just got a lot of pop, and it comes off a paddle face a little faster than the original ripple. And these are 252 with code. You please use DRPRICE at Ronbus. There's nothing about the stats that are really concerning other than slightly high balance points that you see. For example, on my R1, just put a little slice to bring the balance point down a little. The swing weights were in the reviewer paddle sort of varying, and I think that was just strange. When I messaged Dong, he said the average for the R1 was 122 plus or minus 2, and I think on the website it still says 124. There were people, I think Braden maybe got like one that had a swing weight of 128. Mine, I've got this kind of unicorn 7.98 static weight, 120 swing weight. It's not too hefty. I'm having some pickleball elbow lately, so I do probably prefer, and I think most people are preferring this R1 for the little bit of power and the little bit of difference in terms of the reach. It's just a little faster and again, super offensive. And I don't typically play. I'm about to do a review on power standards. So I don't typically play standard. I'm still sort of a hybrid gal. But if I did play standard, wow, this thing's so fast, so maneuverable, so powerful for a standard shape paddle. So if that's your shape, it's the most offensive. Obviously, this is the most offensive hybrid paddle out there. It's just a harder to play against paddle. This, though, like many of the EVA foam paddles, it's exponential. So I don't typically recommend it for people who aren't at least 4.0 and above. So keep that in mind, that you are going to struggle if you don't have smooth strokes, or if you don't get your paddle in position on time. It's a paddle that could be really punishing if you don't have skill level to handle the power. R1, 59 miles per hour drives, serves. If you look at John's database, 38 on pop. I think the only thing ahead of this was the new Holbrook, which was hitting 60 miles an hour. So again, top of power, top of pop. So wonderful option. Again, 252 with code DRPRICE at Ronbus. They're fantastic if you're a power paddle person. This is the next one, the EVA Adidas Metalbone. I won't spend too much time on it. I think it just wasn't so popular because it's only UPAA approved. Everything else I'm going to talk about is USAP approved other than this paddle. So just real quickly, I did get this from Chris Carson over at Pickleball Central. I'm a huge Pickleball Central fan, so I have a link down below. I hope you'll use the link if you're interested in this paddle, or use the Pickleball Central link at any time for discounts. They're just so great in terms of customer service. You get a 30-day return policy, so you can basically try a paddle, send it back if you don't like it. Anyway, Chris sent this to me because I hadn't set up anything with Adidas yet, and I do love this tennis style. I mean, I love the structure and the frame of this. The handle is very wonderful in terms of its, static weight. Mine was 7.7, so it's really light. Swing weight 119, which is fine for an elongated. The twist weight 5.13, and it's got a little bit of a high balance point, 24.52. And when reviewers say a paddle is tingy or jarring off the sweet spot, that was really my experience with this. I maybe could spend more time weighting it, and I got a little bit of weight on it, but really working it in a little more perhaps. But I messaged with Mari Humberg about this, and it was kind of funny because I was just asking her a weight setup. She, of course, loves the paddle and highly recommends it. All I can say about it is I realized that I'm not Mari Humberg when I play with this paddle, because it is a little more challenging. Again, a high skill level paddle because of the sweet spot. I love a power paddle, but I really need a good sweet spot, and this one's just a little bit low. Great, it's up there in power, 58.4 miles per hour, again, according to John's database, and 38 for pop, so it is near the top for the pop. It's just a nice design. It just kind of got overshadowed by the ripples, I think, in terms of the EVA foam paddles that are very offensive. Okay, the next one in my list, the Gearbox Hyper and the Pro Ultimate 14. The Pro Ultimate 14 was supposed to be the replacement for the sunsetted Pro Powers. And again, I've always wanted the feel of a Gearbox, to be able to have the skill to play. This was better for me, a bigger sweet spot, the Hyper, and I've done multiple reviews now where I've discussed these if you want to go back. I actually included this in my hybrid lineup, and I referred to this in the elongated one, comparing it to the Yolas. But great paddles, especially if you're a Gearbox person. The main draw was the power, though, and they've had to be kind of scaled down all the way back to like 57.7. So not even in the top 10 or 15 maybe. Like the power on this came down to like where the TruFoam Genesis 1 was maybe. And then the other term I've heard people use that maybe is a good descriptor, like the swing weight of 123 and a low twist weight, so it's kind of sluggish. Again, you have to be a skilled player. And I'm putting up the x-rays with this, and this one's a little bit easier to just kind of show you, and I went more in depth on these in previous reviews. And I do think they're giving way to, and here's why. Look at the one x-ray for this as compared to Gearbox's new paddle, the GX2, which I think is finally the really user-friendly Gearbox we've been waiting for. So I'm going to switch over to a little chart to show you, everyone's saying this is the best Gearbox so far. Although if you look at some of the reviews, I mean, even in the titles of the reviews, some people were calling these polarizing. My playgroup had fun with these, and when people use the term muted, this is exactly what they mean. Kind of mixed because the muted and the feel. They took a while to work in though, so I think people didn't stick with them, and they took weight. There were a couple things that stood out. They had nice, decent static weights you see there in green on my chart, but the swing weights were a little high, the twist weights a little low, and the balance points definitely high. So the biggest thing was that a lot of people go Gearbox for the power, and 57.8 mile per hour serves, 36. I mean, again, this was sort of comes in behind the TruFoam Genesis. So the feedback that he got on these was that they didn't have as much power maybe as people were hoping for, or as much feel. So I'll put up on the screen already, and this is what's so impressive about Gearbox. Raphael, he has taken that feedback, and he's already gotten his GX2 Power approved. That is going to be an option for people who want a little more power, a little more feel. Matt of Matt's Pickleball, he was one of the prototype testers of that paddle, and I think it sounds like it's going to be fantastic. I don't know if it'll be later this summer or in the fall. It is approved, or the updates are approved. Gearbox, they just make such great paddles. You'll see the sweet spot, and that old x-ray that I showed you of these, where the EVA foam on the edges is very different than the core, center of the core. I love that he's just spread out his entire sweet spot with this. And he doesn't even like, I was messaging him, it was actually commenting on something, and he said he doesn't refer to these as foam. He says it's a carbon fiber core. So it is carbon fiber kind of reinforced, but it does have EVA foam, and you do feel that. And I'm hoping, it sounds like, based on what Matt's saying, his update is going to be even more, give more feel, more sound, because a lot of people need that feedback. So these just don't give you a lot of feedback, and they're a little hard to adjust to. But again, the best Gearbox yet, and if you're a Gearbox person, their paddles are so well made. You could play these forever and not worry about anything going wrong with these. Great handles, great structure. He makes a great paddle. All right, so I want to wrap up the, I can't even wait to tell you about this. I want to wrap up the EVA foam paddles with the Element 6 SURTR. And just bear with me, because I know some people are skeptical about smaller brands you've maybe not heard of, but I've had a couple moments, and I've been playing pickleball since, 2020, COVID, around that time. And I was excited when the Gen 3s came out. I was excited about the Ripple. I actually got a Yola Pro Mod TA that was a pro player mod that was legal the whole time. And I love that paddle. I don't think I've ever, I'm certain, I have never loved a paddle like I love this paddle. This thing is crazy. I'm going to put up the screen. Remember, I said I wanted EVA. I love that soft foam feel and the power that it can provide. I've always wanted to be skilled enough to play with one of the Gearboxes, but it just, I couldn't hit the sweet spot very well, and there was twisting, and I couldn't handle the power exponential issue. Wow. This thing, it is what I described in the intro. It's that near top of the line legal power, but it does the work, and you still can keep the ball in play. That's what I love about this paddle. So I should start out by saying it's SURTR. It reminds me of that, if you've seen the Saturday Night Live skit, Murder Dirter. Murder Dirter.
It's Owen's Dirter.
Dirter?
Did I stir? The dirter's been murdered.
SURTR is the Norse god of fire, and he apparently holds a big sword. So that's what's the, I mean, Matt made fun of the streamlined design of this, and maybe the Element 6 folks want to kind of branch out in their colors and designs, but I don't care what it looks like. It plays just crazy amazing. So I'm going to put up the x-ray, and you can see why. This is similar to, I don't know, like Eddie said, watch the John Q podcast where Eddie says it's kind of like if the Ripple and the Gearbox had a baby kind of thing with a giant sweet spot. So it does have that similar structure of EVA and carbon fiber, but it's so intricate, and it's coming all the way to the edges that there's no twisting. It's so stable. And the other issue I've had with all of these paddles is the weight. This thing, 7.7 static, and the few of these that are out there, because they were prototypes, all of them are coming in under 8 with swing weights of 114 or less, twist weights of 6.65, which, remember, foam twist weights don't even represent how stable that. This is the most stable thing. I put a little bit of weight to break it in. I was playing it stock just because everybody wanted to play it and try it. I mean, I'm not kidding. I have probably handed this paddle to 50 people, and I think every single one of them has gotten online immediately and ordered one. So they are on pre-order through Element 6, and he's doing this special pre-sale pre-order. I guess they're supposed to be $199. I would snatch one of these up if you're seeing this, because there's probably only like 50 to 75 left, I think is what he said in his first pre-order. And then he's going to go up to his regular price of $199. The thing that I love about this most is the dwell. I mean, it just, you could like make breakfast while the ball is on the paddle. I mean, you can place the ball so well with this because it just dwells and sinks into that foam. So dinking and drops, yet it still has this killer power. So when you're, I think the biggest thing I like about it is the resets. Justin was saying this about another paddle we're going to talk about, the Honolulu's. But he said, you know, he was just surprised, shocked at, like, he puts his paddle out and it resets the ball. I mean, anywhere on the court, this thing just does the work for you and resets. It's really a game changer. I, again, can't say enough about it in terms of feel. And I meant to grab a ball, and I'll try to put up some play in the gameplay for this one might be limited because I'm just going through a bunch of paddles, but I'll try to definitely put some gameplay. The thunk thud sound of this thing is just so appealing. People just, it turns heads. It has a little bit of exponential power, but it's controllable exponential power. So I'll show you, and you do have to kind of get the paddle in position, but I'm going to put up John's Q Core. You'll see it's coming up just below the ripples and the Yola 16, right kind of where the Yola 14, the Yola Perseus 14 millimeter, just above. So it's a little bit more powerful than the Flamingo and the Paddletech TKO. Definitely more powerful than like the TruFoams and the 11624 powers. But wow, the power isn't even what I love about it. And it's definitely a power paddle, and it's got decent pop too. It's just the soft feel and the control and the ability to place the ball. Paddle technology beyond belief is what this thing is. It's going to sell out, so get online quick if you want to try one of these. Love this paddle. The difference between what I was talking about, the foam, the EVA and EPP, so you can kind of see the difference, and then we'll come back and talk about those EPP paddles because there's a couple of those that are just as amazing.
Most of the Gen 3s are surrounded with a little bit of EVA. This is really the only piece of EVA I could find, but you see how soft it is. So the Adidas Metalbone, the Ronbus Ripple, the Gearboxes, and the Element 6 SURTR, they are all EVA mainly based paddles. Almost all the others are some form of EPP, which I'll just show you. For example, this is Blucore, and if you look, it's quite hard to the touch. So EPP, not as, I can't even squeeze into this. Although different densities of EPP, as you can see from this is the Element 6 ZEPHYR. You know, it can be made to be more soft and pliable, which, you know, adds to all the things we want, like dwell and touch.
Now then you got a minute overview of the difference between EPP and EVA. I'm almost as excited, and I actually probably am as excited. I'm going to keep one of these in my bag too, for sure. These Honolulus, they are as fantastic as everybody's saying they are. I did get a prototype for the NF, so it's not exactly probably the way that the NF is playing, but definitely the biggest question people have is not, are they going to get one of these Honolulus, but which one? And I don't have the Kevlar, and I want to say props to Matt from Matt's Pickleball. So use his code MPB at Honolulu if you like, or use my code DRPRICE. But he did lend me this, and Jam was just so sweet, by the way. Same thing. He just messaged with me about these to kind of help me identify the differences in what the core is and so forth. So I'll put up the x-rays, and I do love that the notched foam is interesting. If you watch Dustin's dissection, so these two are notched foam, and there is a Kevlar version too. The notched foam sort of just sits within and kind of floats almost in a Gen 3 style. But really, when I was messaging with Jam earlier today, he said this one has the potential, that was his word, because of the pivoting core in the J2FC Plus, that pivoting core, he says, has the most potential for power. I'm going to show you a chart in a moment with the lineup in terms of how the power and the pop on these. And this one actually plays a touch softer than the regular NF. So if you want the most power, you're going to want the NF. If you want the most soft dwell, you want the NFT. The shaping on this is going to come in top 5 spin and ball shaping. There's just something about this, and the surface on all of these is fantastic, but this is like sandpaper. It's fantastic. I just kind of, maybe because this one was worked in and I had gotten it from Matt, it's just the softest, most wonderful thing for EPP. So it's kind of what I hoped, and I don't want to pick on the carbon TruFoam. I'm going to talk about it in a second, and I do love the carbon TruFoam, but it's a little softer, and it's that because it's notched foam, it's got that core that sits in EVA. It just is, but this is just wonderful. If you're having a bad day, for example, and you're overhitting with one of your other power paddles like the Ripple or something, and you just want something that's going to keep the ball in play yet still have a high amount of power and just the ability to shape your shots and not hit balls out, this is kind of like a nice soft fallback. I'm just not a crisp power paddle kind of gal. So if you're a crisp power paddle person, you're going to like the regular NF. It's got a CFC layup. The ball comes off of it faster. It had a PB core of 0.434, I think he said, which is, you know, top of legal power. One thing, and I have really no complaints about this, but I put up, you know, some of the bigger guys, I have a hand model. Brooks Jones, thank you for being my man hand model. I don't have any trouble with 2Es on these, but if you have big hands, that's probably the only issue that's in terms of the taper. And I should have showed you one of the things that a lot of people probably will like about this SURTR taper is it matches the Franklin exactly. So even it's 5.5 or close to 5.5, but then you still have this taper where you can do a two-handed backhand pretty well. That's maybe the one limitation that some people don't like about this is it's a little tighter because of this taper, but that's what gives it its amazing, you know, it's known for its crazy good sweet spot. So if not for the SURTR, I would say these are probably the best paddles I've ever played. So they are right up there. And again, everything you could ever want in a paddle, close to near top of legal power, controllable, stable. I do agree with Justin and everybody else that this one is, you know, particularly the softer one like this and the slightly less powerful, like the Kevlar paddle maybe too, is a little less powerful. I mean, you have to be prepared for the fiberglass pop on the NF. And this has some good pop too, but I think if you're just trying to get into a power paddle, it's so user-friendly. For some reason, it's just not as exponential. And I was always a fan of the J2 Ti more so. I like just what the Ti does to his Honolulu paddles. It just sort of slows them down and softens them up. I felt like the J2K was even kind of crisp for me, or I mean the J2K Plus. But it's got a decent amount of power too. It's right up there with, you know, almost the 11.624 powers. I think I'm going to definitely keep this FC Plus in my bag, and this is why. I'm just going to tell you what Justin said that makes a lot of sense to me. We're messaging, and I said, which one are you choosing, and why are you choosing? So he said he's choosing this one probably because the fiberglass, and this one doesn't have fiberglass, the fiberglass in the NF, it said if you're playing on a hot day with like an X40, a softball, it's almost a better choice. But, you know, if you're playing up against faster, better people, this has less pop and a softer feel. So his point was that the softer feel allows for better resets, better dinks, that kind of thing. So this is probably the safer choice. It's just a tad less powerful. It's got a little more touch. Now, Jam, when we communicated today via text, he said, this one has the potential for more power. So I haven't broken it in fully, so we'll see how that works out. It does have a little bit lower of a PB score, but he made it seem like, you know, don't be fooled by that because it's still going to generate maybe nearly as much power once it's worked in because it has that, you know, the pivot core. I've covered the carbon TruFoam now in multiple reviews. I actually used the carbon TruFoam 2 in my ripple comparison kind of hybrids, because I'm just not happy with the hybrid shape. Their 3 is sort of like an elongated with a shorter handle kind of thing. I can't say enough when you put up the x-ray again, like what this was at the time that it came out. I mean, this was, and I still think, is just the most amazing innovation. Like John used the term sluggish. The one thing that was troublesome to me, and I don't want to go into all the specs of the TFG because these have been around for a while, but that it's a little bit heavy, and the fiberglass maybe made it so that there's a little outside the fiberglass a difference. Still, I would still argue it's got a great sweet spot. It's pretty consistent across the entire face. And particularly, people are loving this one. A lot more maneuverable, the 2. It's again, I'm going to hang on to this and go over it again in my power paddle, my power standards, because it's on the bottom now of power, I guess. But it's still, I think, a power standard at least. And these are still at the top of the spin category. I mean, there's the way you can shape the ball and spin the ball with these is fantastic. And I don't even know, I'm not even supposed to show it to you, so I'm just going to put these over here. But I saw that they got their Waves UPA approved, and I have messaged with Brody, and I'm just wondering, dying for the Waves to come out, because I don't think, I just hit it a little bit and I think, wow, it's lighter, it hits harder, it has more control and a better sweet spot. It's just better in every way than, because, this maybe just required a little tweaking, and it's still an amazing paddle. For those of you who play it and love it, it's so great. But the Waves is going to be fantastic when they actually release that to the public. I know their pros are already playing with it, and I mean, I definitely would be on board with the Waves paddle for sure. I can't even remember, and I do have a code with Carbon if you're still interested in purchasing them. They've been out for a while. My DRPRICE code will get you the regular discount. I'm going to just quickly go over the last 2 and say some nice things about these. I was really excited about Blucore when I was working my way up. This was a great intermediate level, the Warrior, and I love the 18K edge, the spin. Like their shapes, it's a little behind maybe in terms of it can be kind of, I don't like the word clunky, but these are light enough. My static weight, I think, was like 7.7 on this, and it had a decent swing, like 117. But, they're putting out 9 different paddles, and I'll show you the chart. So these 9 different paddles, they play very differently. Like I got the 19 in this elongated with the long handle, so I think this is the Pro. And the 19, it's a great all court with a great sweet spot. Like I would say, if you're intermediate, this is a great paddle. It's probably not going to be something upper level players would be interested in, this 19mm core, but it's very control oriented. Can't miss the sweet spot type thing. And then the other one they sent me was this Blucore 14 Max. And the 14, and by the way, I do love, they make great paddles. And the biggest thing about this is a forever warranty, right? So this is a lifetime warranty. That's how, sure they are about Blucore. The reviewer crowd was kind of concerned. I didn't get any issue putting on tape on this edge, and I love it. It's a little rubbery almost. I love the feel of it. It doesn't scrape or anything, which is wonderful. I wish more companies would do that. And in this 14, so interesting, because I got a different, really very different feel at the surface of the 19. But this 14 was so fun to play with. So this is the 14mm Max. And I would almost put it in my power category, although when we were play testing this, it felt like the ball came off really fast and then didn't have a lot of carry. So by the time it got to the other side of the court, it was kind of slow. It has pop, a lot of pop. It's probably in the top, I think it's in the top 20 for pop. It's the lowest ever swing weight, except maybe now I have these new Franklin Tempos, a really low swing weight. But so it's like the fastest paddle ever. So fun, so light. So if you're looking for something fast and light, I really like the 14, and probably the 14 in other shapes might be something that higher level players would be interested in. It just required a lot of weight to get any kind of plow or carry was the concern. Anyway, I think solid offering. Again, you can use my code DRPRICE with Diadem and check out that chart and kind of see what's going to fit you, because they got 9 different options, which is so fantastic. The final EPP core paddle that I want to discuss is the Project 008. And I started out with, I have liked Selkirk. I was just waiting for them to come up with something wonderful like this in their foam. And I do love the tour shape, the handles. This is kind of interesting. When my play group play tested these, it was like we had power paddles that day to compete with it. And it's just everybody kept putting it down because, again, it needs to be weighted up to get much plow through, so it kind of falls into the all court. But it's super. They make such great paddles. It's such a solid offering. Nothing bad to say about it. Decent sweet spot. You can use. Everybody has the INF for their code, INF-DRPRICE for these, and you get a gift card. But they're $288. So for $288, which is the highest price paddle I think out there, these Project 008s, I would say they need to offer more maybe. If you're a super high level player and you weight this up, this Invicta, I almost felt like it played different off the top because it's so long than it did off the middle, but I didn't weight it much. So you'd have to be a really skilled high level player probably to play well with the very thin 10 millimeter. I was kind of excited to try it, but it just, the sweet spot was not so great. And there's twisting because it's so thin and light. But if you're a really high level player and that's sort of your thing, it might be better in the tour shape. I had higher hopes for the 13, but it's just kind of a nice all court. If you're buying a Selkirk, this is the Selkirk to buy. I know we're talking about foam paddles, but they finally come out with the Gen 3. This Era Power is releasing next week. I need to do a whole separate review highlighting this because they've really hit it out of the park with this one. So I'd say if you're gonna go Selkirk, I'd really take a look at this. And just, I'm not even sure if we're supposed to say this, but their rumor is more foam is coming. So what I do love about some of these companies like Gearbox and Selkirk, they've kind of taken the feedback, and I think Carbon has too. The waves is probably a result of the feedback that they've gotten about the TFG Genesis. So they've taken some feedback on this, and they're going to come up with a new foam paddle probably in the fall that I hear is going to be spectacular. But this, if you're looking for a Gen 3, this is the Selkirk I would buy right now. I always appreciate you using my code. I'm going to go over before we cut out, just because I know people are curious. I've kind of summarized some of the data from John's database, and because John hasn't collected data on the Honolulu's yet, I've got some in from Jacob's database here in pink for us to look at. But before we do that, I want to say there's also more foam coming. So Gruvn, he's about to put his foam paddle out, and I'm hearing it's fantastic. I can't wait to get it and play it. He makes great paddles too. And the Nexus Sky is, this was one of the first of its kind. Just this and the Olympus are the only one that has foam-filled cells, the Pro Star, but he's coming up with foam paddle. So there's more foam paddles on the way. There's probably more than that I'm not aware of. But let's take a look at this chart and see if you're interested. Obviously, the Holbrooks, the Ripple, the Yola Pro 4 are at the top of the power. And just keep in mind, the Q core correlates pretty directly statistically with PB core, but it's a point higher. So if it says 0.53, that's John's score is probably equal to the 0.43. That's the legal limit. So I want you to notice, and all of these, the Ripples, the Armas, the Perseus, I don't know why he didn't have a score for the Pro 4. So I didn't see a PB or John Q score, but they're just based on power. It's up there. And then notice that J2NF with the carbon fiberglass carbon layup is right up there. So it's probably going to hit a little bit harder once worked in than the SURTR, The SURTR is 0.51 on John's Q-Core. I don't have any numbers yet on it. I didn't want to use my numbers because they don't really compare with some of the guys' numbers. But just playing these, it's definitely up there. And that PB core is kind of indicative. It puts it well above the Paddletech there, the Perseus Pro 414, definitely over the Vapor Power and the Flamingo. So notice the J2FC should be right up there too once broken in. There are those pink scores are Jacob's numbers on his drive speed or his serve speed and his volley speed for his pop. So they don't correlate directly with John's, but I wanted you to see this is probably, if you're looking for the power and the pop, kind of the way that these fall. There could be, remember, I hate doing this because swing weight really makes a difference, and so does how worked in a paddle is, and of course if you weight it. So all these are really close. I mean, most people say you don't really notice a half a mile an hour difference, but because a lot of people give me our, I'm sharing this information, but I don't think it's a good idea to just pick a paddle based on power and pop alone. I think this is just good information to have along with other information. In fact, my touch lineup that I'm going to put up here now is probably more helpful. And I've blacked out a paddle that is not supposed to probably get any exposure yet. I'm not affiliated with the company, but it's just an update to what's out there. So I'm excited for it to come, but I wanted you to see how soft it is. So the SURTR, I definitely would say, is the softest. And I should mention in this lineup, there is the ZEPHYR as well, which is their EPP, Element 6 EPP core. And I do think it is going to compete with those Honolulus in the sense that it's EPP and a little bit of EVA around this. It just, for some reason, I think he submitted it like 8 to 10 weeks ago. It shouldn't have any trouble passing PB core. So this one should be approved any day, the ZEPHYR. If you like soft plush, these EVA foam paddles on the left, the SURTR, the Ripples, even the Metalbone, once they're worked in, those are going to be the softest. And then we get over to once we hit the JNFT, that's EPP foam in a bed of notched EVA foam, and then next to it is the ZEPHYR, which is also EPP and surrounded by some EVA, so it has a nice, it's still that sort of crisper feel off the face, but it gives you good dwell because it's surrounded by EVA. And there's the others. The FC Plus is a little less crisp than what's next to it, which would be the NF. That has the carbon fiberglass face, so it's going to be a little more crisp. And then honestly, the TruFoam, I thought it would have been softer, but we tested and tested and tested these. It really is not as soft as these Honolulus, and part of that's probably the core, the dwell of the core. And then the Gearbox was next, and it's just the toughest, the GX2, because it really has a hard to feel. The ball has to really sink into it for you to feel. I would describe that little, those are the blue cores. The 14 blue core is just springy. And then the 19 blue core, it just has a little more firmness off the face. And I don't want you to think that the Selkirks, the 008s, are firm at all, because they're really not. Every single paddle in this foam lineup is kind of soft compared to any kind of Gen 2 thermoformed paddle. Compared to all these others like the EVA foam and these others that are embedded in EVA foam, they just turned out to be the least soft, but they're still soft. Wrapping up here, I wanted to close by saying it really helps the algorithm and helps me to have company support by sending me paddles and so forth. If you like and subscribe and comment, if you will. I want to answer questions if I can. So please use my code and the links below. Again, thanks to Chris from Pickleball Central, and I hope you'll use that link. I also need to mention I'm wrapping everything in UDRPRICE, so I'm going to put a code down below for UDRPRICE as well, the DRPRICE code, because I do love their grips, and they've been very supportive as well. And then again, thanks to Matt from Matt's Pickleball for lending me one of his paddles, and I hope to see you again in the next one.